Manchester.
That's fine. I mean, I can if you want. If you want to switch. Here, we'll switch.
Maybe, right? You don't think so?
Where's Ned?
I don't know. I know where he is.
You can't start without him.
You can't start with that, yeah. Here it comes. Second to get your bulletproof shield up there.
Alrighty, let's light this candle. Turn my phone off.
All right. Welcome, everyone. We will call this February 20th, 2020 meeting of the Murray City Planning Commission to order. I'd like to welcome everyone tonight. And first order of business, I'd like to introduce the people that we have here with us. On staff, we have Jared Hall and Zach Smallwood. I was going to say Littlewood, and that would have been very demeaning. I'm sorry. So, Zach Smallwood. We have Ned Hacker. I'm Phil Markham, the chairman tonight. Scott Woodbury and Lisa Mokevich. We are missing a few members tonight for various reasons, but we do have a quorum, and so things will run smoothly, I'm sure. Before we get started tonight, I would like to go over just some rules for the meeting. When we have, I will bring up the agenda items. I will review the agenda with you, and then as I bring up the agenda item, then we will have a presentation from staff. We will have discussion with the Planning Commission. We will allow for public comment, then we will bring it back up for a decision. And when we have public comment, I would first of all appreciate if you could turn off any cell phones that you may have at this time so we don't interrupt the meeting. We request that anyone's welcome to speak. When you come up, please wait to be recognized by myself. Come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes to address the topic at hand. We would ask that if there's a lot of comment on one particular item, that you try and keep the information flowing with new information each time, not repeat the same information over and over, if you would, please. And if there is anyone here representing a group of people, we will allow 5 minutes for that. So with that, I think we're ready to start. So we'll go to the agenda. And first item on our agenda, there are a few business items, and the first one is approval of minutes. We have 3 minutes that we need to approve for tonight, and we have minutes from the, okay, I got to get my
16th.
Yeah,
Second.
I've got to get my clip off there. January 16th. Well, let's start. Yeah, January 2nd. All right. Here we go. December 5th, January 2nd, and January 16th. I had mine backwards after I clipped them. So has everyone had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Any corrections that anyone saw?
No, they look great.
Okay, we did have one mention of a minor clerical correction in our pre-meeting, and that has been noted, and so that has been entered into the record. But with that, I will call for a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the December 5th, January 2nd, and January 16th Planning and Zoning meeting.
I'd like to second that motion.
Have a motion from Scott Woodbury, a second from Lisa Mokevich to approve the minutes as read into the record tonight. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, carries unanimously. The next item on our agenda is conflict of interest. Do any members of the commission have any conflict of interest with any item on the agenda this evening?
No.
No.
And I do not either. So the final business item is approval of findings of fact. We have 2 findings of fact that have previously been discussed by the commission. We have one for Smith Family Dental and an additional one for Fashion Place Mall for signage at Fashion Place Mall. Everyone's had a chance to review those?
Yes.
Yes.
Any corrections?
No.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the findings and facts and conclusions for Smith Family Dental, which is a conditional use permit to approve the construction and operation of a new dental office, and Fashion Place Signs, which was to a conditional use permit to allow multiple signage throughout the Fashion Place Mall property, including an electronic message center.
Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Okay, Ned. Have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Ned Hacker, to approve the findings of fact for Smith Family Dental and Fashion Place Signs. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we'll get to the meat of our agenda tonight. And the first conditional use agenda we have is, and there we go. It is a beautiful fence. Item number 4, a beautiful fence incorporated at 4195 South, 500 West, unit number 34. And Jared Hall will be presenting this for us tonight.
Thanks. As you mentioned, this is a conditional use permit. It is for a fence contractor. This is MG zoning in the what commonly is referred to as the Garco Industrial Park. Unit number is right in here, I believe. It is MG zoning. Contractors are required to get conditional use permit approval to operate there in that zone. It's a standard unit number 34, 900 square feet. There's a small restroom, a small office. The rest of the space is shop space that they plan to use for this fence contracting business and installation. They have a couple of places where they'll set up their table saw, metal saws, have a little bit of storage inside the unit. That's all fairly appropriate. One of the conditions was that we look at the electrical situation with a permit to make sure that everything has been done correctly. You'll see that in your conditions. Another condition that we worry about in Garco is storage of anything outside. Materials cannot be stored outside. There's not space for emergency services to get through if that happens. So we don't allow outdoor storage of any materials or of the work vehicle in this case, because there are only 2 parking stalls available for any unit in Garco, and that's no exception here. We just wanted to mention also that we look at ADA requirements when we process anything in this industrial park. The commission a couple of months ago recently required someone else to install an ADA compliant stall nearby, and so we're not requesting that in this case. We are recommending approval of the project with the following 5 conditions. One of them being that they get a license for this, also that they keep all the storage and the activity for the work inside the unit, including the storage of the vehicle, the work truck, and that clear access be maintained. Do you have any questions for staff?
Jared, can you address the handicap parking
Sure.
situation?
You bet. So I'm going to forget which unit it was, but I think it was number 31 or 31 and 32 perhaps, that we just recently in November or December processed an application for Lake City Motors. One of their conditions was to turn one of the parking stalls they had available into an ADA compliant van accessible stall. They're working on that now.
And that will cover the requirement for
that'll
this
cover that
particular
area.
area
So
as well. Okay.
Just as a reminder, 1 out of every 25 stalls is supposed to be ADA accessible in the project. So years ago with Garco, we started looking at the project and making sure that we got one about every 25 stalls. So that row will be taken care of with that Lake City Motors application.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions for Jared?
Not a question, but Jared, just a small little clerical error. Condition number 3, 1 letter. Adequate fire land. I think it should be adequate fire lane.
No, I meant land.
Land. Okay. I'm constantly learning.
All right. Well, seeing that we have no further questions from staff on this right now, we'll open this item for public. Oh, excuse me. We'd like the applicant to come forward, please, and address us and add any additional information if there is any that you'd like to add or ask questions. Sorry about that.
Hello, my name is Michelle Castro, and I don't have any questions.
Could you state your address or?
My home address is 4293 West Stain Avenue, West Valley City, Utah, 84120.
Okay, and you've read the conditions attached to this, and
Yes.
and are you able to meet those?
Yes.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add with the
No,
presentation?
not at this time.
Okay. If you'll take a seat, we'll see if there's public comment for this, and
Okay.
if there is, we'll ask you to come back up and address anything that might come up.
Okay,
All
thank
right?
you.
Thank you. All right, with that, I will open this agenda item up for public comment. If there's anyone here that would like to address any part of this application, we welcome you to come up to the podium at this time. Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public comment, bring it back up here to staff, and see if there's any further discussion or if you see fit, a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a fence installation business on the property located at 4195 South, 500 West, unit number 34, subject to conditions 1 through 5 as discussed.
Okay.
I'll second.
Have a motion by Lisa Milkevich, a second by Scott Woodbury, to approve a conditional use permit to allow the operation of a fence installation business on the property located at 4195 South, 500 West, unit number 34, subject to conditions 1 through 5 as stated in the application. Call for vote, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. Motion carries. The conditional use permit has been approved, and so just communicate with staff, and they'll get you all taken care of. Welcome to Murray. I hope the business is successful for you. Okay. All right. Our next agenda item is a little bit different from a typical item that we handle, in that we have 3 agenda items that will be combined into one for presentation purposes tonight. This particular presentation will deal with agenda items number 5, 6, and 7, and they are the Utah Education Association new office building project, also a subdivision project dealing with Arrowhead Lane condominiums, an amendment to that, and that pertains to this particular piece of property, and also the Pontiac subdivision. So it's a 1-lot subdivision amendment. So it's a little more complicated just in reading it out, but I'm sure Zach Smallwood will be able to explain it very clearly so we all know what's going on.
Very clearly. Thank you, Chair, for that introduction. So yeah, this is a multi-step process. What I'm going to do for the sake of the audience here today is I'm going to go through this through a number of steps, and I apologize, I should have put it as the next slide, but we'll get the property kind of information out of the way. It's located here on 9th East between Arrowhead Lane and Pontiac Drive. It's in the GO zone, which actually leads to what we're going to talk about here. So these are what I've laid out as the 6 steps that we are working with UEA so that they can obtain a new office building. That is the ultimate goal here, is so that they can get a new office building and stay within Murray, because they do like the community here. I will start with number 1. The general plan and zone change was heard and approved by it was heard by you guys, who sent a positive recommendation in 2018, I think October or so, and the city council approved it in December of 2018. So you can tell how long they've been working on this. They've been working for over a year on just getting to this next step, which is the most complicated step, which are steps 2, 3, and 4, which is what we're here for tonight. Step 2 is a partial vacation. That sounds a lot more fun than it really is, of the Arrowhead Lane condo subdivision. So what that entails, so here you can see the property as it sits today, or what they're proposing to do. What they're proposing to do, sorry, I'm trying to keep my thoughts right. So this goes along here. This is the existing property line that has the condo subdivision. I'll back up a little bit as well. Condos, much like if you were to, buy a townhome or buy a condo in a high-rise, businesses are also able to condominiumize and sell portions of their building. And that's what had happened at some point in the past. UEA had decided they used to own this entire building, I believe, and then were subletting some of it out and then decided to condo these out so that they could sell portions of the property. So you can see here, this is the location of UEA currently. This is condoed out into, I believe, 4 units. So what UEA is proposing to do is withdraw from that condominium plat a portion, which is this part here, which is about half an acre, which is largely used as parking right now in that area. And as part of that, they need to demolish a portion of the building in this location here. That building code does not allow for property lines to run through existing buildings. This was an addition that's no longer in use by UEA, and so this would allow them to construct that lot. So that is agenda item number 5, but step 2 in this process. I didn't know the most appropriate place to place the pictures, so they're right here in the middle of the presentation. This kind of explains where the property is in location. Pretty much where these pictures are taken is where this new property will be located, along these sections here. So that's number 2. Number 3 is a single lot subdivision. So when you withdraw from that condo, you have just a piece of land sitting there. State code requires that any land be subdivided. So that's what this single lot subdivision entails, which would result in this, which is just a single lot that does meet all of the requirements for the general office zone. There are, sorry, let me get to that page. So there's no lot area requirements. It does have to have a width of 90 feet, which we would measure that here. They have approximately 195 there, 196. There is a 20-foot front setback, again, would be measured here. And then a corner side yard setback of 20 feet as well, which would be measured here. But there is no rear setback unless you are adjacent to a residential zone. Because this is not adjacent to a residential zone, it would not have a setback requirement. That being said, we will jump into step 4, which is the conditional use permit for the actual building itself. Anything within the general office zone does require Planning Commission review and approval through a conditional use permit for any new buildings being constructed in this zone. So this is the existing or the new building site plan as it sits, will sit if approved temporarily, and we'll get into that in just a moment. The building would be built approximately here, does meet those setbacks. The front is required 20, they're proposing 31. The corner side is approximately 33 feet. So 33 feet from the back of sidewalk here to the building. So there's additional 9.5 feet or so of park strip and sidewalk as well. So you're roughly 40 feet from the street, 40 something feet from the street, and then you have the street there as well. So some of the items that we look at during a conditional use permit approval was those setbacks. we do have height requirements. Height requirements in the geo zone are 30 feet. In the any single family residential zone is allowed to build up to 35 feet in height. So this is actually lower than you could be built within a single family residence. They are proposing actually 32 feet, and in your staff report I have called that out and stated that it was a miss on my part, and that I've called it out as a condition of approval that they need to reduce that by 2 additional feet. The landscaping, our landscaping requirements requires 1 tree. I'm sorry, can't remember it. I'm losing my mind with all this information I have to throw out. So 3 trees, 5 5-gallon shrubs, and 10 1-gallon shrubs for every 100 linear feet of frontage on a public right-of-way. So that would have been along here, along 9th East and Pontiac Drive. Through review, they are meeting the tree standards. I'm going to need a more detailed site plan at the time of building permit submittal for me to review that, make sure that they're going to meet up with it. Most of this just said general landscaping, lawn, shrubs, things like that. So that will have to be addressed. This is kind of the fun part. This is the floor plan. This is the main level floor plan. You can see most of it is, almost all of it is used for conference space, office space, much of what they're doing now. Just as an aside here, part of the reason that they wanted to do a new office building is the costs to repair the existing structure were far outweighing the cost of a new building. And so I believe they've said, the applicant has told me that there are leaks in the roof, and repairing that is just an exorbitant cost that they can't incur. And so it's actually cheaper for them to build a new building and stay on site than it is to do that. So this will provide a new updated facility for them to continue their operations as they've been doing. This is second level floor plan. A lot of this, I believe, it was on the first floor, where a lot of this actually provides them opportunities to grow as well. These are kind of office spaces that aren't using at the moment, so this does provide them some additional growth possibilities there. Some of the elevations for you. This is the illustrative site plan. This kind of shows this is more reflective of what the building is going to be and what the full build out of the site will be. And as you can see, this is where the existing building is right now, this little outline here, which is going to stay for the time being while they build this new building. And then once they move out of that building, or once this new building is constructed, they will be moving out of that and demolishing a portion of this building so that they can recoup some of the parking that may have been lost, which I apologize, I didn't address at all. The parking that they did have, the site is currently parked with 295 stalls, I believe was my final number. Yes, 295 stalls. The requirement for the buildings, the entire site, even the neighboring site, which is, I'll go back to this aerial here. So for this building and this building, I calculated the total parking because they are connected. That was the 295. They are required to have 185. So they're well in excess of that. With the new building at approximately, I believe, I think it's 24,000 square feet, they need to have a total of 253. With construction of that new building, with the parking removed, they will still be at 258 spaces provided. So there's still 5 spaces over what's required, even though they intend to remove the building in the future and provide more parking in the future. So that gets us through steps 2, 3, and 4. The last thing I'll touch on, I apologize, I didn't show the nice pictures, the renderings that they had provided of the building. So this here would be 900 East. This would be turning into Pontiac over here. This would be kind of in the parking lot area. This would be, again, within the parking lot area. It's not. There we go.
Mhm.
So this is in the parking lot area, and then this would be on 900 East itself. So, like I said, that gets us through step 4. This is purely informational at this point, but steps 5 and 6, which will require you to an additional approval in the future after they are done, they anticipate to demolish, like I've mentioned, the remainder of their site so that they can improve the rest of it to show additional parking, additional landscaping, etc., and leave this portion of the Arrowhead condominium, commercial condominiums, intact. So with that, we are recommending approval on all 3. The partial withdrawal of the condominium, which is step 2 here. The single lot subdivision, preliminary and final, and the conditional use permit for the building itself. That was a lot of information I just threw at you. I'm sure there will be questions, and I'm happy to answer anything that you have at the moment.
I'll start, Zach.
'Kay.
Just, do we have a slide of what it will look like with a future building with the portion that they're going to demolish wiped out, and then that remaining part there? I'd just like to see kind of a footprint of what that might look like.
Like
It-
this one, or
Well,
it's
But that,
But all of that is not going to stay, the old building, right?
what do you mean?
The old building outline, that's gone,
Right.
right? But you're talking about maintaining a portion of the condominiumized old office. Did I get
Like,
that correct?
Is that more of along the lines that you're looking? Because
Well-
that has this is the new building.
Okay,
This is the existing.
and
building.
everything that's existing will be gone eventually.
Will, except for this little.
Okay, that's
Lot, yeah.
kind of what I was getting at. Is I don't know.
We don't know, right, Zach? We don't have a design or a map that shows us what it'll look like after they've demolished some of the existing buildings.
That's correct, and it's at this point. That would be coming more at a later point.
Okay.
They'll do final design work
Right.
and final improvements during steps 5 and 6. That will lay out the rest of the site work to make sure that it is complete. I mean, it meets code as it is, but to make it better.
Okay,
Well, and go ahead.
go ahead. No.
And Zach, if I'm correct, and traditionally when we're reviewing, subdivision projects, we're not even necessarily looking at the building per se, right?
Now, during that,
For the preliminary,
yes. During that preliminary
Right,
part, yes.
because they'll
This
be
is a
coming-
unique situation.
right? I know this is unique, but I'm trying to draw some comparisons. So they will be coming back. We will see
Final
additional designs for the final.
Mm-hmm. And
And so there may be some tweaks. Obviously, the building has to be a little shorter, 2 feet, and some
Yep.
of those other things. It would be great, to Commissioner Markham's or Chair Markham's, to see what it would look like long term with whatever building, if they have that.
Yeah, and Ashley Atkinson, she just stood up and gave me, this is an updated version of that same drawing with the portion of that building there. I can, if you guys permit, I can allow you guys to see it if you'd like. It's just illustrative at this point. It doesn't provide any additional information.
That would be great, I think.
Yeah.
Additional comments and questions for Zach. Lisa?
I don't think so at this point.
But Zach, in terms of impact on neighborhoods, as you addressed earlier, and thank you for your detailed information, the height restriction is actually lower than if it was a single-family residential home. They are addressing ingress and egress through closing of some some different accesses, and that if you go to the
And-
next slide, Zach. No, the previous one, sorry, the colored one. Yeah, so what you're saying is where these will be our future entries, which will actually allow a little bit better traffic flow to be able to come in onto Pontiac or Arrowhead and go back out to the light. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and actually, I did not address that as well in this part as much as I should have. So what I would this probably shows the best version of it. So as you can see, as the property sits today, there are 3 entries into this site. There's an entrance here, right adjacent to 900 East. There's actually, this serves as 1, but it's technically 2 because this sidewalk here actually is a raised sidewalk, so you can't cross this with a vehicle. So there's an entry here, entry here, entry here, and then an entry here on the north side as well.
And Zach, and what they're proposing is to eliminate essentially the furthest 2 towards 9th East on Pontiac.
That's correct.
And
So-
only have the one.
So they will be removing that section, the one that would be right here. They're consolidating this one so that
Okay,
you can
okay.
actually get through and circulate into the site a little bit better as well.
And Zach, I'm sorry,
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
we're talking about flow of traffic a little bit, but we really haven't talked about traffic numbers, like a traffic study. But we're not anticipating a change in the visits to the site because it's the same company, same business.
That's correct. Yeah, and that's actually, I believe it's conditioned in one of the motions here that that at most we will only accept, or we will only provide a temporary certificate of occupancy. That way we have a control that they would not, that UEA could not build this building and then decide, oh, we're not going to tear it down. After all, we're going to lease this out and use additional stuff. So there's a temporary certificate of occupancy that allows them to move in, but we wouldn't issue a final certificate of occupancy until after that, the demolition of the rest of that site.
That's a nice addition of information because
Yes.
That's number 4 on the third one.
All right. Any other questions at this time for Zach? We'll have another opportunity, I'm sure, here shortly. Okay, is the applicant present? If you'd like to come up, sir, and address the commission with any additional information or perhaps answer any questions that you may have heard.
Thank you, Commissioner Markham. I appreciate it, and thank you, Planning Commission, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Brad Bartels. I am the Executive Director of the Utah Education Association, and I'm here to speak to you on behalf of our 18,000 members that are statewide. Our Murray headquarters is basically our spiritual and organizational home, and it has been for quite some time. I personally have always wanted the challenge working with these professional associations to be part of building a new building. We're part of the National Education Association, it's fair to say. There are state affiliates in every state. In fact, Utah has 2. One of them is currently one of our partners in our building. And it's fair to say that a lot of those buildings are in disrepair. And I used to work in Colorado, and we had a very large building that was in disrepair, and we were unable to basically make changes and build a new building. So this is a huge opportunity for our association here in Utah to actually kind of revamp our home in Murray and keep that going. I sought that challenge. I've never had that opportunity before, so that's big. So I've been here for about a year and a half, and I've come to know our building, and I tend to think about our partners in our building as it's more like a condo maximum than a condominium. We have our other state affiliate, the Utah State Employees Association, that actually houses in our building. We're going to maintain their part of the condominium association along with 2 of our unit affiliates. So ultimately in step 6 of this process, that part of the building will still be there. That's not part of the application here tonight, but that's really our future plan. And I believe, Commissioner Markham, you saw the kind of the picture of what that footprint of that remaining building is going to be. So So again, our home is here in Murray, and our current building has housed our association for 53 years there. To say that our current building is in disrepair probably is really an understatement. It is, if we didn't demolish it on purpose, it would probably demolish itself very quickly, and so we're in a position where we really have to do something. It is true that the cost of remodeling this building is in the millions of dollars, and it's not something we felt like was a good investment of our members' money. All of the money that the Utah Education Association uses is member dues. All of our money comes from our 18,000 members, so we've got a strong fiduciary obligation to make sure we're spending that money wisely. So I have come to find out in the last year and a half, I've been the recipient of a lot of Murray lore and a lot of Utah Education Association lore. Yes, our building is haunted, our current building, so we're going to try to lay some of those ghosts to rest with this move. We are a neighborhood partner. I mean, when I go to work in the morning, I see people walking their dogs around our campus. I've heard stories about romances being initiated with picnics in our grass over the years. It's a very friendly neighborhood, and we are definitely a part of it. And I don't know how else to say it, other than it's a really good vibe there. And it's something we really want to retain. It's very important for our association to retain that. So now we've got an opportunity to really build something new and really strengthen that relationship with the city of Murray and with our neighbors in our neighborhood. And we can build new traditions, new relationships. We can continue to have that kind of community integration that's so important for us. Murray is our home in our association. We want to build a new and attractive building to really strengthen that tradition. We want people coming to Murray, statewide, our members, patronizing Murray businesses and understanding that Murray is really our home. So it's very important that we stay there and not just sell the building or move elsewhere or develop other property. This is a long-term tradition, and it's very important for us to make sure that we retain that tradition. So we're really excited about our future. As you hear about our request for our conditional use permit and the Arrowhead condominium and Pontiac subdivision projects, we hope that you'll be excited about that too, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions from the council?
None at this time.
I have one. Just projected numbers of employees that will be utilizing the facility, exclusive of the new building, obviously, that's proposed down the road, and that's not part of this discussion tonight. But is there going to be any change in the number of employees and cars that access the site?
So we currently have one lessee who offices with us, but it's one of our local, we call them local option units. It's one of our state, like smaller state affiliate offices. They have a number of employees. They are actually going to be leasing from us in the new building. We have the potential that one of our partners that is still part of the new footprint may be leasing from us in the future. We have two what we call state option affiliate units. One is in Ogden, one represents Eastern Utah, and they office in our building, and so we're going to have the same number of employees, the same number of lessees in our building, so it's not going to impact parking at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Anything else for the applicant at this time? Thank you very much. We may have some questions here following this. All right. We have heard from the staff and from the applicant. I will open up this agenda item for public comment. If you would like to speak, just please wait momentarily to be recognized. We'll have you come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and allow you to voice any comments or concerns that you may have. So with that, public comment is open. Please.
So I'm Lori Sweeney. I have a residential home at 5195 South, 820 East, within the 500 feet where we got the notice about this meeting. Our biggest concern is parking, egress, and the timeline for building, because it's going to impact how we access our homes during construction. It may stay within the parking lot, but that's one of the things that we're concerned about. The timeline, how long that's going to last, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, that kind of thing. A couple things were addressed that were good to hear, that they're going to accommodate for parking for their employees, but are they considering how many people visit their office building? And then are they going to be open to how many people want to drive through their parking lot to access Arrowhead, to use the light to get onto 9th East? As long as there's maybe speed bumps or something to prevent speeding through that parking lot, because it will be used for that from both sides probably. Those are our biggest concerns. The fact that they're not planning to lease to anybody else, bigger corporations or something that might come in and want to use that building for something else. I'm sure that would be further down the line. It sounds like they want to stay in Murray, but those are our biggest concerns.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Please.
My name is Linda Brown. I live at 738 Arrowhead Lane. I am not within the 500 foot area, but because I drive up Arrowhead Lane all the time, obviously this is a concern for me, leaving our subdivision. I am one of those people that on a winter day when it's snowing and rain, there is at the top of Arrowhead Lane, there is an incline that I can't get up if the roads have not been salted or it hasn't melted. I am one of those people that drives through the UEA in order to get over to Pontiac, which is a flat area for me to make a right-hand turn or left-hand turn, depending on traffic. So I just wanted to say that what Ms. Sweeney's just said is actually accurate, because although I don't speed through there, there will be traffic from one entrance to the other based on those road conditions. I just wanted to add that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other takers? Please.
So I'm Glenn Bancroft. I live at 5195 South, 860 East. So I'm in the cul-de-sac immediately south of the UEA building here. And the concern I have is really the parking during construction, because it seems like, you know, our cul-de-sac is going to be a prime location for folks that want to park, and it's really not conducive to street parking because it's so tight. So that's my concern.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, with that, I will close the public comment portion of the of this agenda item, and I would invite staff to come up first and address some of these concerns. Zach, it looks like the major concerns are, of course, you know, parking, both entering and egress, timeline for construction, visitors / construction parking, all of those types of things.
Definitely.
Those would be the major topics.
Yeah, and that was actually it was brought up during our planning review meeting that we have with our staff internally. The city engineer brought up the term for construction stuff is staging. So where they put their stuff at night, you know, where are they impacting construction? So that's all called staging. So he was concerned about staging for the site, and we had talked through that, and I believe from what I understand, it's going all in here. Is going to be staying within this area here. Let's see if I have a better. Yeah, that's the best one I can show. So staging will be happening in that location. So we don't anticipate there being construction equipment within the parking areas, and we would ask that UEA and the other condo association owners make sure that if they are seeing that, to move them off of it, or move them out of any potential parking areas. That will be a responsibility for UEA to do.
Okay. I think right now there's a surplus of surface area to accommodate that, to be very
Yes.
honest with you. So I don't see any reason that there would be any construction traffic parking on neighborhood streets or that. However, would it be appropriate for us, if there's enough concern, to make a condition that construction traffic cannot park on the subdivision streets?
You definitely could do that. That would be definitely within your.
Might be somewhat reassuring.
Yeah, it could be reassuring for sure. Yeah, if the commission would so like, that's definitely something we
Okay,
could.
that is something that could be considered.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
The second was the circulation. At least during this process where they have both, it's actually probably going to be a little harder to
Right.
get through the site because what you'll have to do is, in essence, this will show it better actually. You'll have to come off Arrowhead here and then loop around to go out. So I don't anticipate. I drove this today. I don't anticipate a lot of speeding through here.
No.
And then this portion, and I apologize that the public can't see it, but the updated illustrative plan that I showed you guys up there, it actually kind of carves out where this existing building will stay.
Yeah, just that corner.
Just
there,
this
yeah.
corner here. So it's not going to be a complete straight shot through. So I think that will help slow traffic down in that area too. I don't anticipate that becoming a huge concern. Timeline.
Yeah, that was my next
um,
question.
I will leave that up to UEA to answer
Okay.
because I do not have that
All right.
information. So
We'll
anything
that.
else I can answer right now?
Let's see. I think, other than the timeline, I think that pretty much
can I-
addresses things. Lisa?
Go ahead,
Well,
Lisa.
possibly, you might be able to address the construction concerns slightly. I believe it's this SWPP plan, the SWAP plan. There's
Yeah,
plans in
it's-
place to minimize the construction influence on the neighborhood around. Could you speak to that?
Yes, but that's not what SWIP does necessarily.
That's not
SWIP is it's a stormwater pollution
Right, because
prevention
which
plan.
plan is it that I'm not recalling at the moment? But there- it's in place.
It's pretty much just us watching.
I think
it
you
and
are
keeping an
thinking
eye.
of the SWIP, but that just controls it. Any
does,
disturbance on site has to remain on site.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's pretty much what it does, and make sure that like no dust or anything gets in
Right.
the air or pollutes waterways. That's kind of what SWIP would cover.
I'm assuming because it's somewhat new to me, it might be new to the public as well.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it keeps the streets clean and clear, the dust down.
Sure.
It keeps
Yep,
the
they-
construction on the construction site.
That's correct, and yeah, they will have to. Any construction in the state has to obtain SWIP, so these guys would have to get a SWIP permit as well.
And then, Zach, was there any concern from the staff review about which road construction will be able to access? Are they going to go from onto Arrowhead and Pontiac? Are they going to go just one? Are we going to direct them in one?
They just because of the nature of the building,
Pontiac.
we haven't stated which side they can and can't. They might have to get up north, and getting through that narrow part
Yeah.
of the building.
But
they
that,
might
but
have
that
to
was
move
not a concern from,
No,
from
no,
the
it
city?
was not
Okay.
a concern.
Because I know some developments that come in, it is a concern, and we have put in conditions where
Sure.
they can only be accessed on a certain road.
Yeah,
So-
no, Trey, the city engineer, did not have any concerns with accessing on either of them. So
Well, if he doesn't have concerns, then I don't.
yes, tonight.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Zach at this time?
Okay.
All right. Mr. Bartels, if you could come back up, please, and address the construction timeline if possible.
So it can't start too soon for me. We're anticipating 12 to 18 months for
12 to
construction.
18, okay.
And just so everyone here is clear, we have no intention of parking construction materials or vehicles on any of our adjoining streets. We have plenty of parking space and other space that we can use particularly after the initial demolition of the corner of the building, that we're still going to be well over what our minimum is,
Right.
even during construction. On the egress issue, I confess that I've driven across our parking lot so I can get out at Arrowhead myself.
Sure.
I think ideally...
It's the wise thing to do,
Yeah,
to be very
absolutely.
honest.
So I'm not anticipating that our neighbors who want to use our parking lot for egress one way or the other are going to feel any difference once the project is completed. And as the engineer said, I mean, at least during construction, even if that little tight area between the new building and the old building prior to demolition is used by construction, it's still going to be possible to move through our parking lot. I know we have a lot of people that use our parking lot that way and sometimes park in our lot if they're neighbors.
Right.
Our intention is to continue to be a good neighbor.
Well, thank you.
I have one
appreciate
other
that.
question about
Yes.
the parking. So one of the questions was parking not only for your employees, which numbers stay about the same, but then when you have visitors coming, meetings and that sort of thing, is that obviously increases the number of parking stalls needed, but do you see that as being an issue in the future?
I don't see it as being an issue in the future. We are going to have ultimately about the same number of parking places that we have now. There are some times that we do have events in our auditorium which, seats maybe 100 people, and we will have people coming in and our parking lot will be more full. To be honest with you, in 18 months, I have never seen our parking lot full. I have rarely seen it half full. We are blessed with a wealth of parking spots far over what the minimum would be for a building like ours. So, and again, I mean, our intention is we want to continue to be good neighbors, and we're not going to make any changes as far as sort of the volume of people that are using our building, and that's our intent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I ask for clarification just quick?
Yes,
So when
please.
you say you have an auditorium, you currently have an auditorium that you invite 100 people into?
Yes, we do.
So that,
No
okay,
change.
no change.
Thanks very much, Mr. Bartels.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I will bring it back up to commission members for some more discussion. For this particular combination of agenda items, I am required to have 3 different motions. We do have to have a motion and vote on each of the agenda items, the conditional use permit for the new office building, the subdivision, the condominium amendment and partial withdrawal, and also the one-lot subdivision amendment as well. So we will handle those separately. We felt it was best to take public comment on all 3 at one time, so we didn't just beat the subject to death.
Well, I'd like to make comment
Ah.
first, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and you know what? Mr. Woodbury pointed out a good question. I did not specifically ask Mr. Bartels if they have read all of the conditions with the first agenda item and if they are able to meet those conditions.
First, second, we can ask them if all of them can.
Yeah, and I'll go. I'm going to repeat this a couple more times to you, just so we cross all the T's and dot all the I's.
We certainly have had an opportunity to read the conditions in the report, and we believe we can meet all the conditions that are specified for all 3 of the agenda items.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that statement. All right. Now, I think we're in a better place. Any questions, Lisa, Scott?
No,
Nope.
sir.
Okay.
I have a comment. So I appreciate all the comments that everybody made. And I really think this is a wonderful opportunity for UEA to both vacate their current dysfunctional building, build new, stay in Murray, and as we saw in the staff report, for them to have some opportunity to expand as we're growing community across the region. We know that will happen. And to close a couple of driveways, or perhaps 2 driveways, or consolidate them, which should help traffic probably on both streets, both Arrowhead and Pontiac. So I think this is a good opportunity for both UEA, the neighborhood, and frankly for Murray City. So
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, we had discussed potentially adding another condition.
Yes.
actually, after the discussion, I don't personally feel like it's necessary based on, I mean, it's, you know, there's adequate parking. The staff typically does a very good job at policing those things. Mr. Bartell said that they will not be parking or staging off the property. Having seen similar projects, I don't necessarily feel it is necessary. If someone opposes and wants to put that, that's fine. I personally don't feel like it's necessary to add a condition for that. But
All right.
'cause
And as chairman, I can't make a motion or
just
that.
Ned
so-
or
Fine, I think
Ned or
that's-
or you guys.
I think that's fine. I think that's up to the staff also to ensure that that happens on all construction sites.
Right.
So, and
Just,
they
just
do a
to,
good job of that.
right, just to
what I've
add to the
seen.
discussion, when the staff calculates parking, they calculate employee and visitors. So I feel like in the past, they've shown competence in this area, and they do a great job. And also, as you stated, the discussion suggests that the construction traffic will be respectful and taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, if Trey would have felt like that there was an issue with it and it was going to be tight either on parking or
Mhm.
on staging or any of those, then certainly I would feel more compelled to add a condition. But at this point, I don't feel like it's necessary.
But I also believe, just so the public knows, I agree. I don't think it's necessary. But if there is a problem, the public's always welcome to come to staff and discuss it. If the problem does occur, it can still be addressed, whether there's a condition or not.
All right, so we do the conditional use.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
number
I'd like
5
to make a
first.
motion.
Mr. Hacker?
I'd like to make a motion that Planning Commission approve the partial withdrawal of the Arrowhead Lane condominium subdivision located at 875 East Pontiac Drive, subject to the following conditions 1 through 4.
Okay. I
I'd-
have a motion.
Second that motion.
Yeah, I have a motion by Ned Hacker, a second by Lisa Malkevich, that the Planning Commission approve a partial withdrawal of the Arrowhead Lane condominium subdivision located at 875 East Pontiac Drive. And with that, we'll call for a vote on that one.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, now, item number 6, the preliminary and final subdivision approval.
We actually didn't, he made the motion for the withdrawal, but the conditional use permit was actually number 5. So just from a procedural standpoint, we didn't motion that one. So
Are we out of order?
he motioned, Zach put the motions in the wrong order.
I'm going off.
Conditional use permit's actually the third one, but it's actually item number 5 on here.
I see.
So it was just an agendizing
I know.
moment,
I'm
but
just pointing it out.
so technically, Ned did do the right motion because we need to do the withdrawal and then
Right.
the
Right.
Right.
subdivision,
Because
then
that
the conditional
steps-
use.
The steps in
Yes.
order. Right, you
Yes.
are correct.
So
So the next one will be the preliminary and final.
I
Right,
just wanted to make
and-
sure we weren't going all willy-nilly.
for sure, yes. So you can state we're doing the motions in different orders from how they're agendized, but
That's all I
But
wanted to make sure.
Still
Zach.
in the
Yes.
proper order.
We're
Yes.
doing them in the proper order,
Right.
so.
All right.
Nice job.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
We need to call. Yes.
Oh, sorry. We're good. We're
Call
good.
for a motion.
Can I?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Lisa.
Okay. Mr. Chair, may I make a motion?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Excellent. Can I move that the Planning Commission grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for the proposed Pontiac subdivision on the property located at 885 East Pontiac Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 4 as discussed.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion by Lisa Malkevich, a second by Scott Woodbury, that the Planning Commission grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for the proposed Pontiac subdivision on the property located at 885 East Pontiac Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 4.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, and we have one more pertaining to this.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for new office building on the property located at 885 East Pontiac Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 8.
I'll second that motion.
Have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Ned Hacker, that the Planning Commission approve a conditional use permit for a new office building on the property located at 885 East Pontiac Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 8, as listed in the application.
Yes.
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 Yes. You know, and I would like to mention something. I know Miss Sweeney, and my daughter also lives in this neighborhood down there, and it's a great neighborhood. you've got a real responsibility to maintain that, and you've been a great partner for many years. I love seeing the people walk through the neighborhood during the day. I think that's really important. That's part of what is, that's why you don't have any opposition to this, to be very honest with you. A new building, new impacts, whatever, as long as things continue the way they are, I think it's a real asset to the community, and I hope that continues. Thank you. All right. With that, we will move to agenda item number 8, Stallings Construction. It is a 4-lot commercial subdivision, preliminary and final approval.
So when reporting on subdivisions was being doled out, I gave Zach all the hard stuff and kept the simpler subdivision for myself because I'm gracious that way.
Zach's going to go home, and he is going to be so confused tonight.
That's experience speaking there.
Part of Zach's salary is good experience in planning items. Item 8 is Stallings Construction. It's a commercial subdivision. There are multiple addresses listed, but really those are addressed for buildings that 3 of which exist, and the 4th is coming in the near future. I'll just go to the aerial slide. This is the property. It's on Commerce Drive on the east side. You're seeing right here the my finger's not working, but the Inverness condominiums are just to the north and east, or sorry, to the south and east of the project property. These 2 buildings that you can see right there have been in place for a while, and there's a 3rd building now that's just finished construction right here, and a 4th one is planned eventually right here. They're all mirror images of each other. Stalcom Business Park. They are all commercial in the MG zone. The site plan for those buildings is not required to be publicly approved by the Planning Commission, so the site planning for those buildings has been done for some time, and the new site plans for the 2 newer buildings, the one that's just finished and the one that will be underway soon, has already been performed. This is just the subdivision tonight, so we won't be talking about the buildings much. The proposal is to take this existing property that you see here, the Stallings property, it's just under 2 acres, and carve it up into 4 lots for these 4 individual buildings. Right now, it's showing the existing structures. In this drawing, there'll be a potential 4th building on that 4th lot. The lots are all tied together for parking and access. All the parking is between the buildings, and the access is from a single 35-foot, just a little over 35 feet actually, on Commerce Drive, letting you into and out of the building. The buildings kind of, for general access, face each other with overhead doors, and they're kind of dressed-up doors facing Commerce Drive, et cetera. I'll show that in a picture or 2 here in just a moment. This is utility planning. That's, as I said, that's all been reviewed and taken care of over the last few months in other meetings with staff. Just a shot from across Commerce Drive showing the property. Again, you can see those 2 buildings, and the newer 3rd building is just right there, the area behind it where the new construction could happen. You can see that more clearly right here. So they do have some facades facing Commerce Drive that look a little more inviting, and then the general more useful access for these kind of structures is facing that interior parking lot. Again, they're all tied together with cross-access easements for parking and access, and they're CC&Rs that control those are attached to your reports. So those will be recorded with the subdivision if it's approved. Because it's less than 10 lots, we do have an ability to have it approved preliminarily and final tonight, and there's nothing super complicated about this application, so we are recommending that the Planning Commission approve both the preliminary and final subdivision for Stallings, the Stalcom subdivision, with these 4 conditions that you see before you. Do you have any questions for staff at this point?
It's rare that we only get 4 conditions, so I think that speaks to the project.
A lot of the things that we normally have to condition for subdivisions have been taken care of with site planning on this that's been underway for a couple of years.
All right. Okay. With that, is the applicant present? If you'd come forward, sir, state your name and address for the record, and present any information that you feel would be beneficial to us.
My name is Reed Stallings. Our business address is right here at 4733 South Commerce Drive. I reside at 10661 South, 540 East, Sandy. Just a clarification on the application. It did talk about a 4th building being built, but as was stated before, there is not. The 3rd building is just being finished being built. Right. There are no immediate plans for a fourth building. As a matter of fact, the concrete parking lot has been completed in that lot number 4 already, and the whole parking lot, all the buildings are complete. The other thing, just for information, is the conditions that were stated, the 4 conditions. We do comply with all except the 4th one, which is a future final plat that has to be submitted. The buildings, all 3 buildings were built along existing property lines and do comply with the 30-inch parapet requirement. And so this is just talking about the 2 east sides of the 2 front buildings. And so they were already compliant with that requirement and do meet that. So that's just those clarifications.
Okay.
Any questions?
All right. Any questions
No.
for the applicant?
Nope.
Not at this time. Thank you. Jared, do you want to clarify number 4, that condition there?
So I think with respect to the 2 different conditions, with respect to the 2 different conditions that Mr. Stallings mentioned, item 2 was the building and fire comments from the planning review meeting that we had for the subdivision, and they like to see those things just kind of memorialized. It was part of the site plan reviews, and he did comply with those, but they made them again in the subdivision comments, and we don't like to omit them if they've made them as commenters. So we kept them in there, although we did realize that he's already met those because of the meeting that we had.
Okay.
And item 4, clearly we anticipate that the final subdivision will be prepared. That's why it's a condition. So the condition really exists to say when the final subdivision is prepared, it has to meet engineering standards and all the requirements.
Okay. Thank you. All right. With that, I would like to open this agenda item up for public comment. If there's anyone here that would like to comment on this, please come forward. Okay, seeing none, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting and bring it back up here for more discussion or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for the Stallcom Business Complex subdivision on the property located 4731 South Commerce Drive, subject to the following conditions 1 through 4.
Can I second that?
All right, I have a motion by Ned Hacker, a second by Lisa Mokevich, that the Planning Commission grant preliminary and final subdivision approval for the Stallcom Business Complex subdivision on property located at 4731 South Commerce Drive, subject to conditions 1 through 4 as presented.
Yes.
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 Yes. All right. Thank you. And it's a nice project. I wish all of our commercial projects were this nice and this easy to deal with, so you're to be complimented.
Thank you.
All right. Our final item of the evening is a, okay, let's see here how it's stated on our agenda so I get it right. Just a land use text amendment for the R&B zone, proposing the addition of LU number 112, which would allow twin homes as a permitted use in R&B.
Thank you. I'll be talking about this tonight as well. This is, as you said, an amendment, a text amendment that's been proposed by Brad Reynolds Construction, working with staff to allow or to add land use 1112 as twin homes in this particular zone, in the R&B zone. Just to give a little bit of background about that and talk about it, the first thing I want to be clear about is that we're only talking about the R&B zone in this case. There is 1 or 2 other places where you can see R&B zone, but this is capturing, this particular slide captures 95%, 96% of the R&B zoning in the city, or the places. This is actually a snippet from this future land use map. So not all of those properties that are shown in pink there are actually zoned R&B, but they're all supported for R&B by the general plan, and that's about 95%, 96% of the property in the city that would be that way. Some of those have been rezoned to R&B. Recently, Mr. Reynolds applied and was approved to rezone these properties here for, there's about 6 acres? 4.5 acres. I always overestimate everything. About 4.5 acres. That's the largest single segment of R&B land that we've seen, and probably will see, actually, looking at other properties. Given that, talking with staff, his plans for the property were to develop a series of twin home or duplex lots on the property. Duplexes are an allowed permitted use in the R&B zone. So are single-family homes. And then beyond single-family homes and duplexes, you have allowances for neighborhood-oriented commercial types of businesses, as you're familiar with. Mr. Reynolds, in speaking with staff and having met with the neighborhood, really wanted to propose twin homes, but there is a subtle distinction between a twin home and a duplex, and twin homes were not listed specifically in the R&B zone to be allowed as a use in the way that Mr. Reynolds had proposed his project. Duplexes, as you know, and I'm just going to, we'll come back to this slide in a moment. A duplex, just to be clear, is a single lot with a two-family dwelling on that lot. It can only be owned by a single person. You can't own one side of a duplex, you have to own both sides. That is a duplex. In a twin home, and that's depicted here in this category 1121. That's a permitted use in this particular R&B zone as it exists. 1112 that we're proposing adding with the sub-moniker twin home is just like a duplex, configured exactly like a duplex, but with a property line through the middle of that building, allowing you to own, as an individual owner, one side or the other, and the land that's associated with it. In this case, it would be about 5,000 square feet. A duplex lot is required to be at least 10,000 square feet, meet certain setbacks. We'd like to create the opportunity for the same thing that's already allowed in the R&B zone, but to be owned, or for the potential of ownership to be there with a twin home instead. So if I can get back to the other slide, what you see in red and underline is what we're proposing to add. So we're not only adding the land use 1112, which is single family dwellings attached, but with that sub-moniker twin homes, and then those additional statements requiring the 10,000 square feet, so they can't be on smaller lots than the 10,000 square feet, 5,000 for each one of those two twin home units. And then with the setbacks spelled out as well, so there's no question about what kind of project it can be. There was some question earlier too about whether you could do attached homes, if you could do rows of townhomes in this zoning, in the R&B zone. What's proposed here is not that. This is a proposal to allow twin homes under that land use category 1112. However, to be perfectly clear, that category above, 1111, single family dwellings, subject to meeting the requirements of the RM10 zone, would actually allow you to do townhomes if you wanted to in the R&B zone, because in the RM10 zone, it will tell you, and this is complicated, so I hate to even state it, but I'll try to be as clear as I can. In any single-family zone or in a multifamily zone like this, you can propose a PUD. The PUD chapter says it's applicable in any of these zones. And in a PUD, you can propose any kind of change you want to the setbacks, attached instead of detached, etc. The only thing you can't change is the density of that underlying zone. So in this case, it would be the RM10 zone, and the underlying zone would be 8,000 square feet per lot. So you could do a series of townhomes instead, but you're in the PUD. If you had 2 acres, you could do it. You'd be in a PUD, you'd have to create an open space and a homeowners association, and because you have to create that open space that's a certain size, you clump the homes together, and we didn't feel like that you could do that in the R&B zone. I just have to be clear. That's probably less appropriate as a buffer than the twin home concept. Allowing the duplexes was what the city, when they initially created the zone, wanted and allowed, duplexes. It became clear looking at the minutes from those meetings and things that they weren't really making the distinction, and we felt like allowing, under the same kind of proposal that Mr. Reynolds has made here, allowing that same duplex concept to be owned individually was not in violation of their original intent with the R&B. So we have recommended as staff that the Planning Commission forward this change to the City Council as a text amendment, allowing this land use, 1112, single-family dwellings attached to twin homes, in the R&B zone as a permitted use. Do you have any questions for staff at this point? Does that make some sense? Thank you.
All right, is the applicant present? Mr. Reynolds, if you'll come up, state your name and address for the record, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, Brad Reynolds, 2500 East Haven Lane, Holiday, Utah. I appreciate the Planning Commission taking the time to consider our application. I think Jared did a great job in detailing the text amendment and what it actually does and what we're proposing. As you know, this property is an RMB zone, and initially as we met with the neighbors and as we went through the process, it became very clear that they were hoping for some kind of a residential product where it would be owner occupied. And they were concerned about the commercial and the traffic and the look. But yet, as you look at the property, there has to be a transition with the busy street out there on Winchester from residential homes. So the duplex looked like a nice solution that might be a nice transition from the residential homes and not be a commercial product. And unfortunately, as you know, sometimes as you look at the duplex and the twin home, they're kind of confusing. And I must admit, I was a little confused too, because I look at them and kind of consider them to be the same thing. But obviously a duplex, you have to sell the same, you'd have to have an investor buy that duplex.
Right.
Whereas what we're proposing with this text amendment, we could individually sell these to homeowners where they could live there and they wouldn't be investor rental units. So I think looking from the city perspective, it would be a win-win, as well as for the community. This would certainly be a better fit than a rental duplex where one person or one investor owns one building lot as you go through. So we hope you look at that, and I think I can't see any negative from approving this text amendment, but do you have any questions for me on it?
Just maybe a slight, I don't know, clarification, or not really a clarification, but just additional information. I know from our previous presentation that you've had with us, the price point that you are proposing, and I realize we're not considering an individual project right now or anything, but the price point you're proposing would probably preclude these being rental units.
Well, exactly. So that's what our desire was, is we wanted to build a more quality product, wherein if we're doing them as rental units, they would be very simplified and the cost would have to be much less expensive to make the rentals work on a investor duplex. Wherein now we would make a much nicer unit because we'd be selling them as individual homes, so to speak, even though they're twin homes. And they would certainly be a lot nicer, and the price point would be higher.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Reynolds at this time?
I have a question. So you said, have you met with the neighbors since we met a while back?
No, in trying to be transparent, we had met with them prior to getting a couple of those properties zoned to the RNB zone. We have not met with them since the property has been rezoned.
And I remember what you said tonight and what the neighbors had, their concerns were last time, and it was something that was more family-oriented, a little closer to a residential versus business properties. So it seems like this kind of is that halfway meeting point to suit what they were looking for.
Based upon the meeting and the comments that everyone shared at the meeting, I think this text amendment allowing twin homes is what they were looking for. I know they had concern that they're going to be all rental units, and they were concerned about the commercial building. And I think with this text amendment, it will help us be able to have those as sellable residential homes.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I would like to open this agenda item up for public comment. If you'd like to address the commission, please.
My name's Davis Hansen. I live at 736 Labrum Avenue. I actually didn't come to this meeting planning to comment on this, but ironically, or whatever the circumstances are, here I am. And I'm very well read in the R&B zoning, and you are correct. This is probably a best case scenario for for that property. So I wasn't at that meeting. I was at the very first meeting where they proposed something entirely different, which was terrible. This is a best case scenario. I think it's a great plan, honestly. So twin homes, they'll be nice. You'll get some new neighbors in there. I think it's great. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing none, I will close the public comment portion. Bring it back up here. I don't think we've got any additional questions of the applicant or staff, so.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to include land use number 1112, twin homes, as a permitted use in the RNV zone by amending the text of section 17.140.020B as follows. Single-family dwelling attached twin homes. Twin homes shall meet the following yard and area requirements: 10,000 square foot lot minimum, 5,000 square feet each dwelling. Each dwelling must maintain the following minimum setbacks from property lines: 25 feet front yard, 0 feet interior where adjacent to second dwelling, 8 feet interior side yard, 20 feet corner side yard, and 25 feet rear yard.
Thank you, Mr. Woodbury.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion by Scott Woodbury, a second by Ned Hacker, to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council to include land use number 1112, twin homes, as a permitted use in the R&B zone by amending the text of section 17.140.020B as read into the minutes by Mr. Woodbury.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Good luck, Mr. Reynolds. We'll look forward to seeing you again with some more details and a project. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest. Thanks. All right, with that concludes our regular agenda for this evening. Staff, additional information or anything we need to know? Any parties, Zach? You know, things like that?
Always.
Yeah.
Yes, always free to come down. I'll just give an update for those of you that weren't able to attend. Didn't plan on doing it, but the Fashion Place West open house, we got between 30 and 35 people. That was much better than they were expecting. So
was it good?
Yeah.
Good.
So
You didn't have enough cookies. That's what Zach said.
I know.
I got
There were
shanghaied.
plenty of cookies.
Yeah.
I got shanghaied by 3 or 4 different people. I didn't
Good.
get to really delve into the actual,
Well, there's not- I
process
mean,
that much,
yeah.
but it was nice to talk to the people that were there.
For sure. Yeah, so it was really well received. We got a draft existing conditions report that I'm kind of going through, and we'll have more information later. So
Any idea when a follow-up meeting or discussion will be or anything like that?
I believe
Just curious.
probably, I think it's April, May.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So either sometime between there. Yeah, we
I'm
expect
excited
to be
for this
done by
because
June.
I really
so.
do think there's a lot of potential for that gateway right there.
Yeah.
You know, it really,
Yep.
with the subdivisions on either side of Winchester there.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of potential.
Yeah, it's
Really-
a lot of
really
fun,
exciting.
and it's exciting to go through it. So,
Cool.
the next agenda just went out today. It's not very big.
Right.
So might be complicated, but it's not very big. So,
All right.
good to go.
Not as
Thank you very
complicated
much.
as
Anything
Yeah.
else from the commission members?
Oh,
Make a
just
motion
kidding.
to adjourn?
Nope.
Oh,
I already motioned.
It was. I had it. I had it.
Nay.
Somebody vote down his motion to adjourn just for 1
Nay.
second. for me.
Opposed? I know.
Well, no one seconded it.
He
so you
withdrew it.
I withdraw my motion.
You're a saint, Scott. So I just wanted to
I'll
point
motion
out,
that.
just for sake of so you know. So there's a city council, Mr. Davis, sorry, Mr. Hanson. You have two last names, so it's confusing for people like me. Mr. Hanson filled out a city council comment form because he thought that we have a comment section. We don't do that. So I'm going to use my sort of other items time to point out to you what he wanted to bring to your attention.
Excellent.
We have some complaints from the neighborhood around the advocates about parking on the streets. We're delving into that with the code enforcement folks that we
Interesting.
have. It's on traffic and safety, it's on code enforcement. And we've been looking at that. So I've advised Mr. Hanson to go to the council's comment section to bring that up, but he wanted to make sure you guys knew about it because you are the body that approved the conditional use for it. So
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that,
I'm-
that surprises me.
Yeah.
Does it have to do with who they've sublet offices to and
it has
everything as well?
exactly to
Because
do
I
with
don't
that,
think the
yes.
original business would cause that.
it
so.
has to do with reservation of parking stalls, is what I'm understanding just this last couple of weeks. It has to do with practices of reserving a bunch of
Oh,
parking
they're
stalls
hoarding.
and the new
Okay.
tenants. We're trying to find a way to work that out
Okay.
as we speak. So
Yeah, I
But
hope
I
so,
do
because
think it's
it's
important
really
to-
a quality development, and we're very proud of it. But at the same time, it's gotta work. So
it's a functional deal. We required enough parking.
Right.
It's just how it's being used, and we
Yep.
have to address that. It's tricky, but we're trying to figure that out now. So
okay.
Thank you.
I just didn't want him to.
Thanks
have to
for being
go
here
home
and
not being
bringing that
heard
up.
about
We
it a
do
little bit.
appreciate it.
I didn't
It's
have a
nice
legal
to
way to
have.
do it other than this, so I figured
Oh,
that was
that's
probably
great.
the best way. But
Okay.
I would recommend that you take it to the council as well.
Sure.
Tuesday night where they have the
Public
comment
comment?
sections.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. That's all I had.
All right, now I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
We're adjourned. Yeah, right. You saved me again. See, I get going and I don't